All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're stepping into the ring for a huge debate between two heavyweights, Michael Saylor and Frank Giustra. And their battleground? It's one of the biggest questions in finance right now. When it comes to gold and Bitcoin, what is the real risk?
So just to set the stage, let's start with a number that perfectly frames this whole conflict. If you had put just $1 into gold about 11 and a half years ago, today you'd have about $1.71. Not too shabby, right? But if you would put that exact same dollar into Bitcoin, you'd have over $7 million. That incredible difference is exactly why we need to talk seriously about risk.
But look, this debate isn't about what already happened, it's all about what could happen next. And we're already seeing a major shift. In late 2020, JP Morgan reported that a whopping $7 billion flew out of gold funds, while $2 billion poured into Bitcoin. So that really forces us to ask, which one is actually the safer bet moving forward? Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. Think of it like a boxing match, round by round. We're going to look at government risk, the speed of adoption, what history can teach us, and finally, what all this actually means for your money.
First up, in this corner, representing Team Gold, we have Frank Giustra. His argument is really simple and direct. Bitcoin's biggest enemy isn't some hacker. It's the very governments it was built to work around.
Giustra's whole argument really boils down to this. Governments will never willingly give up their control over money. I mean, it's the source of their power, how they manage the economy and, how they tax everyone. So he argues that as Bitcoin grows, a clash with the government isn't just a possibility, it's basically guaranteed. And he says they don't even need to hack the network to win this fight. Nope, they can just use the law to strangle it. He lays out this kind of chilling four-step playbook to kill Bitcoin softly. First, you label it a national security threat. Then you forbid banks from touching it. Then you make it illegal for you and me to own it. And boom, you've pushed it into the criminal underworld.
And this right here, this is the clever part of his argument. These are the excuses he says governments will use. They're not going to say, hey, we're protecting our monopoly. Of course not. They'll frame it as a noble fight against money laundering, or a crusade to save the environment, or, just a necessary move to protect the nation.
So, that's a pretty scary picture from Giustra, right? A full-on government crackdown. But in the other corner, Michael Saylor, well, he sees a completely different future, and it's a lot brighter.
Saylor looks at this from the opposite direction. He thinks trying to kill Bitcoin is just futile. He argues that governments, especially the US, will actually come to embrace it, not as a replacement for the dollar, but as a complementary technology. The way he sees it, Bitcoin becomes this global savings account, which actually makes the dollar stronger as the world's currency for everyday transactions.
And as proof, just look at the insane speed of adoption. Back in early 2021, Coinbase was adding 1 million new users in the US every week. It's accessible to over 5 billion people who have a smartphone. And we've already seen an entire country, El Salvador, make it legal tender. For Saylor, Bitcoin is like a technological wildfire. It's already too big and spreading too fast to be put out.
Okay, so now Saylor throws a counterpunch. He completely flips the script. He stops talking about Bitcoin's future risk and starts talking about what he sees as gold's biggest flaw, a risk that's been there for thousands of years, the fact that it's physical.
His point is, if you really look at history, gold has one fatal weakness. You can physically take it from people. From the Roman legions to modern governments, the story is the same. Powerful people seize gold with force. And this isn't just ancient history. He points to FDR in 1933 and Churchill in 1940, ordering their own citizens to hand over their gold.
And this, right here, is the absolute key to his argument. Protecting gold requires physical force. It needs vaults, guards, guns. It's a security model based on violence. But Bitcoin is secured by pure information, just a private key. And you can't exactly take a piece of information with a gun, can you?
And this idea extends to who can even use it. Saylor basically frames gold as this old-world elitist asset. It's hard to move, expensive to store, and pretty much inaccessible to 99.9% of the planet. Bitcoin, he says, is the opposite. It's a democratic technology. Anyone with a phone can own it and send it anywhere in the world almost instantly for just a few pennies.
But hold on, Giustra isn't down for the count. He comes back with this powerful rebuttal, and he does it by taking Saylor's own point about history and turning it right back on him.
Okay, now this is really interesting. Giustra essentially says, you're right, Michael. People have fought and died over gold for thousands of years. But that's not a weakness. That's the ultimate proof of its value.
In his view, that violent history isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's the market screaming for millennia that this stuff is incredibly valuable.
And then Giustra delivers his final blow. He says, okay, let's just imagine Saylor is right, and Bitcoin's growth is unstoppable. Well, in that case, it will eventually become a direct threat to the US dollar. And the moment that happens, the government's hand will be forced, and they'll have no choice but to crush it. So in a brilliant twist, he says Bitcoin's greatest success would be the very thing that triggers its own destruction.
So, wow. After all of that, where does this leave us? What are you supposed to take away from all this when it comes to understanding the real risks here? Well, it really all boils down to two completely different ideas about what security even means. On one hand, you have gold. That's tangible security. Its value you can literally hold in your hand, and it's protected by physical force. Its main risk is that someone can physically take it. On the other hand, you have Bitcoin. That's intangible security. Its value held as pure information, protected by math and cryptography. Its main risk is that a government can try to regulate it out of existence. And so, this whole debate leaves us with this one fundamental question for our time. In the 21st century, what does a safe asset truly mean anymore? Is it the physical thing that's been valued for millennia, but is vulnerable to physical force? Or is it the digital thing that can't be physically seized, but could be outlawed with the stroke of a pen? The answer to that question, well, that's going to define the future of value itself.